Happy New Year and welcome to my new YouTube series, Your GenX Big Sister. So, so let me tell you where this is coming from. Uh, Many of you may have experienced this, I don't know, but if you've been on Threads lately, there has been a wave of Gen X women, women over 45, women over 50, um, just really going viral on this platform. And we've all been following each other. But more importantly, we've been having just these really amazing conversations. It's been much more in depth than than what I have experienced on other platforms. So it's been very intriguing for me. And I found it really sort of inspiring my creative juices in a lot of different ways. So I've been experimenting with subjects and topics to see what goes viral. and and the thing that's been like mind blowing is just been hearing the stories, hearing women sharing their stories and their situations and their thoughts and their views. I have just been so inspired and amazed by this generation of women who have not not particularly been seen or listened to all that much. Um, so that's why I decided to start this series. And we'll see how often I'm able to do it. I'm going to work really hard to do this as many times as I possibly can on a daily basis would be ideal. But why I'm focused on topics for Generation X, women, Generation X women rising. That is the generation born 1965 to 1980. I was born in 1966, so I am one of the big sisters of this particular age group. There's 1 year ahead of me. So the eldest of Gen X was born, it turned 60 in 2025. I'm turning 60 this year, 2026. And I find that this, from the ages of 45 to 60, have been, I mean, it's just been such an amazing journey. Um, and just an amazing awakening. I think a lot of how we were raised as children and as small girls in our particular generation, we were handed a lifestyle blueprint. I talk about it a lot in my podcast, Blueprint Breakers. We were handed a blueprint of this is what you do to live a full, fulfilled life. This is what you do to be a full, fulfilled, happy woman. Anything less than this or different than this is not going to work. And if you don't follow this blueprint, you're not worthy and you're going to struggle, et cetera, et cetera. So we were handed that blueprint and it worked out very well for many of us. And for many of us, it did not. Either it did not fulfill us, it did not offer us what we were seeking in life, or like myself, in my case, I desperately wanted it. I wanted the blueprint. I wanted the blueprint lifestyle. And for lots of different reasons, lots of different circumstances, and some decisions that I made, it didn't happen. Uh, so the traditional blueprint, you could probably guess what it was. I mean, you were supposed to, like, first of all, you do well in school as best as you can, get good grades, and then when you're done, you go to college. That was definitely handed to our generation because the generations before us fought really, really, really hard for us to have opportunity and options and for college to be a little more commonplace. So you go to college and you're going to have your career. But ideally, during that time, at that same time, you're meeting the love of your life, who's going to be your partner for the rest of your life, and you get, engaged and married, and you have kids. It wasn't quite clear how to do all of that simultaneously. Because as it turns out, if you go one path over the other, it does impact the other way. It's hard to have all of it 100% all at the same time, although many of us did it and are doing it. So um, shout out, shout out to those of you who are able to do it. But anyway, I digress. So I wanted that. I meant to have that. I wanted it more than anything. I believed, I definitely internalized the belief that that's what it would take to make me happy and fulfilled. And that's what it would take to please the people around me and to impress the people around me. It didn't work out. I never found my partner. And I never found my partner. And I definitely made an active decision that I didn't want to have children without a partner. Um, and then I approached perimenopause and menopause and started to realize that the option was going to be taken away from me. And then I had a miscarriage in my mid 40s, and it became visceral how badly I wanted that, at least part of that, even, just please, even just a child. Um, and so I miscarried. So that option was taken away from me. And I was not prepared for the grief, the massive grief and recovery that I needed during that time while going through menopause, coming to terms with being childless, not by choice. So, all that to say, because I kind of went off in different directions there, but all that to say that the blueprint didn't work out for me. And since it didn't work out, and then I entered this phase of life into my mid late 40s, into my 50s, now I'm in my late 50s, I had to figure out, who am I without that, without achieving that? Who am I? Who am I going to be? What is my place in this world? How am I going to be fulfilled? How am I going to be taken seriously? How am I going to have a full love, a full life filled with love and joy? And I think that there's a lot of women in the same boat as I am. And I think in different ways, we're all kind of struggling with what the blueprint did to us in our early days. And we've just started to really peel back the layers and do some really deep, dark, hard work on ourselves much later in life than some later generations, where those types of conversations and those types of issues are looked at much earlier in life. So we're dealing with our mental health, we're dealing with grief, we're dealing with challenges in our 40s into our 50s. Me personally, it hit a peak at about 55, which is when I did a massive pivot and gave up my corporate executive, very comfortable career, got rid of most of my belongings and decided to take a sabbatical, took a break, took what started out to be a 90-day sabbatical, turned into what was going to be a gap year. And then 3 years later, I'm still living life that way. So this series is going to talk about that. It's also going to talk about a lot of the topics that came up on Threads that really struck nerves. So just to give you an idea of some of what blew up on Threads, and if you want to find me on Threads, I'm at amypalmer.today on Threads and Instagram, amypalmer.today. And there's specific topics that really blew up. Anything where I mentioned where my Gen X sisters were, there's a whole bunch of us showing up here, that got a lot of attention. So calling out the generation really, really brought the women together. Also talking about our childhood, nostalgic memories, amazing memories. It was a really, really fun to walk down memory lane to read through the comments on that. We had another thread that talked about, what was the first job you ever had and how old were you? And that was mind-blowing for me. The average age was about 11 or 12, by the way, for Gen X women when we started working. Very specific to our generation, I think. So a lot of really great stories there. And then I started talking about some of the really personal parts of menopause, something that I coined the term lust lens. My lust lens lifted in menopause. And I'll talk more about what that is. But that struck a nerve with a lot of people, pros and cons, and agree and disagree. So that was really interesting to hear. And I put out a very innocently, I thought innocent, question asking what other women my age who don't have partners, who don't have kids, what are you doing to celebrate the holidays? Got a lot of really, really great response. Got a lot of very defensive responses. Why are you do you ask married people what they're doing? So there's a lot of I don't think that the commenters realized that I was asking out of curiosity because I am one of them and I was just looking for how other people do it. I think they were assuming I wasn't one and I was asking out of like not well-intentioned curiosity. I don't know, but it was interesting nonetheless. So a lot of these topics have sparked ideas for me of things that I want to talk about. And I don't want to be condensed to a 90-second reel. So I'll be discussing them here on my video YouTube series that I am calling for now. Who knows if I'll change it, but right now I'm calling it Your GenX Big Sister. So thank you. Stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, follow to make sure that you know when the new episodes are coming out. And I'd love to hear from you. Any questions you have on anything that I just spewed a whole bunch of stuff out there. I'd love to hear from you. Anything that sparked you, hit a comment for me because I'd love to hear about it. That's it.